So where we're going with this next set of videos is we're going to continue to review and continue to talk about absolute positioning to be able to stack things up, and we're going to add a new property, which is the hide show. So what we have here is the same blog layout, and it's just that my 9 images are stacked on top of each other, and I can change what's visible clicking on these links here by using my hide and show. So I've used absolute positioning to stack all of my images on top of each other, and then I just hide or show different ones based on which link I'm on. So over here in Dreamweaver, the only thing I've set up so far is right underneath where I have my 9 images in the blog style layout. I've already added the text set 1, set 2, set 3, and I've made them all into false links by adding the hashtag. So I'd like you to go ahead and do that. If you have a hard time accessing this space, then do it directly into the code view. Sometimes it's hard to get the arrow or the cursor to go below an image, or you could add some padding as well to the bottom here. So if you can't get into here, just go into the code view, and right after your last image, put in a separate paragraph, or directly the UL tag and add it in the code view. Okay, and then I centered these by going to Format, Align, Center. I used HTML to be able to center them. All right, so the next step of what we would need to do, because we're going to use absolute positioning, this is what we're going to do. Is we're going to label all of these images, image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. I'm going to give them all IDs so I can control them. Then I'm going to take all of the images that are ID'd in this row and stack them on top of each other. All the images here, stack them on top, and all the images here, stack them on top. So we're just going to have one row. But each row is going to have 3 sets of images there. I'm going to use absolute positioning to do the stacking, and then I'm going to use hide show to be able to decide which ones are shown when. So because I'm using absolute positioning on these images, I have to set the div that the images are in to relative positioning. And I've already done that. So if you go up to your main, you need to set the positioning to relative. Also, just to not override this practice or mess with it, I'm going to get rid of this last rule that I had here that was styling the images in the main, because I'm going to style them with the newer way that I'm going to set them up. So I'm just going to delete that, and then that's going to make them just shrink down and they won't have any styles. So my main has been set to position relative. So the next step that I need to do is I need to ID all of these images. So my first ones are already done. If you click on the image, you go down to the Properties Inspector, and when it says ID, type in image 1, or you can call it photo 1 or something like that. Just you can't put in any spaces, and it can't start with a number sign, with a number. And you want each one to, you just be consistent. So if you're going to capitalize the first letter, then do it for all of them. So I did my first 3, and I need to go and do, let's see, this one I've done 4, 5, 6. And actually, I think I've ID'd them all. So this is what you will see after you've ID'd them all. You can click on them and go into here. Oh, so this one still needs an ID. This is going to be image 8. Click on this one. And I'm just copying and pasting so that it's consistent, and I just changed the number. So I click on the first one. I see that's image 1. It's been ID'd as image 1, ID'd as image 2. So now that they all have IDs, I can write some rules that control their positioning. And since these are in my main, I'm going to keep my rules after my main rule for main, sorry. And I'm targeting an ID, so I start with a hashtag, image 1, and I have to write it exactly the way I wrote it there. And then a comma, another hashtag, image 4, that's the one below it, hashtag, and then image 7. So that's my first column, and I'm going to give them positioning of absolute, position, absolute, and I want to move them all up to the top. Oops, I put relative, sorry. And I want to give that to the top 10 pixels. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space there, and also to the left 10 pixels. And close it out. Now when I click over to here, that whole row shrunk up and they're all on top of each other and they're right up here. They are 10 pixels from the top and 10 pixels from the left. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my second column, and I'm just going to copy everything here and paste it again and just change what I need to. So this is image 2, image 5, and image 8. I'm going to give them a position of absolute. I want to keep them at the top, but I'm going to move this one over to be 165 pixels over from the left. So my image is 150 pixels. This starts 10 pixels, so that moves it already. If I wanted it to be right here, it would have to be 160, and if I wanted to be 5 pixels of space in between, 165. So I click over here. I now have my second set, and they're right at the same height and just 5 pixels over. So now let's do the third set. And again, I will just paste in. I'll copy this row and paste it in. This will be image 3, 6, and 9. And I want these guys to be 320 pixels over. So this is just a matter of kind of setting up the math beforehand. Again, just thinking each image is 150 pixels wide, add that up, and then add up however much spacing you want to have in between all the images. And I click over here, and now I have my 3 sets. But my div shrunk up, because when I use absolute positioning, it's taking whatever I set to absolute position out of the natural order of things, just like floats do, and my div thinks it's empty, so it shrinks up. So I have my set 1, set 2, set 3 up here, and they're hidden behind. So to be able to show them, I'm going to add some padding to the top of my div that's going to push the words set 1, set 2, set 3 down. So that is going to be to the top of my main. Padding top. And I'll put about 120 pixels, I think should do it. And that brings it down. So I have 120 pixels of padding from all the way from the top to down here. And so that's basically like creating a buffer zone. So it pushes it down. And that's why we can now see this. It's like I've given it a false height. Okay, so now the next set of what we're going to do is we're going to change the visibility and the Z position, which is the stacking position for all of our prints. So I'm going to set them all to have a visibility of visible, and I'm going to give them a Z index. So going up here, and I have to write a whole bunch of rules. I'm going to start right up here. So I'm going to write a rule that targets image 1, and I'm going to give it a visibility of visible. So I want them all to be on initially, and then I will hide them as I need. And I'm going to give it a Z index of 1 for right now, and I might end up changing this. So Z index is stacking. The higher the Z index, whichever number has the highest Z index is what we're going to see on top. So if I have 3 images stacked on top of each other, whichever image has the highest Z index is the image that I'm going to see on top. And I'm going to close this out. And I'm going to, just kind of for the sake of practice, not for the sake of practice of doing this a little bit faster, I'm just going to give every one and the Z index the same as the number of the ID. So this is image 2. I'm giving it a Z index of 2. And I will probably go and change these afterwards. But just for right now, we can see what we're working with. Okay, so now I have all of the rules written here, and I wrote a rule for each individual image, and I gave it a visibility. and also z-index. And so now let's think about the z-index. So the higher the z-index number, that's what's going to be shown up on top. So I want images 1, 2, and 3, that's going to be my first set, to have actually the highest z-index. So I'm going to change 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to make them 10, 20, and 30, just for example. I just need them to be higher numbers. And now I can see my first set. And that's really what I wanted to make sure is that I had my first set up here on the top. So now what I'm going to do is we need to open up our behaviors panel. So I'm going to go over to Window and choose Behaviors. And I'm going to choose Show Hide Elements. So what I want, oh, I'm sorry, I did miss a step. I actually need to assign this to set 1. I need to highlight set 1 and now go to my Behaviors panel and choose Show Hide Elements. So what I want is when I'm on set 1, I want to show image 1, image 2, and image 3, and I want to hide the rest of them. So all of these are showing up because I set them to have visibility. So I'm going to hide the rest of them. Click OK. And now I'm going to highlight set 2, go to the Behaviors panel, choose Show Hide Elements, and this time I want to hide image 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to show 4, 5, and 6, and hide 7, 8, and 9. And then for set 3, Behaviors panel, Show Hide Elements, I will hide all of these. So this is actually something, we're doing it just with these images, but you could show and hide divs as well. I'm going to show 7, 8, and 9, and click OK. So now let's save this, Control S, and F12. So that's my set 1. Oh, I must have some jQuery set up here. Okay, that's just set up from another practice, so I need to go and get rid of my jQuery. Problem with doing too many practices together, and let's see if that's going to work now. So now it will change to the different sets. That's my set 2, and there's my set 3. So this is actually something that you could use way beyond just stacking up images. When you start to think about your NetArt project, the idea of I could show and hide different divs. Let's just try this for fun and see what happens. I will add, while I'm on my set 3, let's see what would happen if I hid my header as well. And now the header's gone. I'd have to bring it to come back through some of these other links. But so just something to think about, something kind of fun that you could use to start playing with these web pages to make them feel like art projects.